Good morning, folks. Everything new under the sun. I want to add some commentary to a few articles this morning about Israel, about Iran, about Iran's movement to wipe Israel off the map, and what they really want, what they're striving towards. And this article here is from jpost.com, and I just want to put it out there. Is it prophetic? Netanyahu warns Iran of last revolution day after regime's threats. Interesting statement, and you can write it off. But does that mean is Netanyahu hinting at maybe a strike on Iran before the next revolution day occurs in 2020? I don't know. Let's read it. Netanyahu's comments came in response to a threat made by Javani, the Guard's deputy head for political affairs, who said at a rally celebrating the 40th anniversary of the Islamic Revolution that the U.S. does not have the courage to shoot a single bullet at us despite all its defensive and military assets, it said. He says, Netanyahu says, I do not ignore the Iranian regime's threats, but I'm not impressed by them either. If this regime makes a terrible mistake and tries to destroy Tel Aviv and Haifa, it will not succeed, but it will be the last revolution day that it will celebrate. They should take this into account. So if Iran strikes Tel Aviv and Haifa, then basically Netanyahu is saying that's an absolute declaration of war, and that Israel would then go in and basically take out Iran at that point. And that's take out the regime, cut the head off the snake, if you will. And that's why Netanyahu is suggesting that there would be no more revolution days that they would be celebrating if Iran attempted to do that. And Iran will attempt to do that. And they will be thoroughly destroyed in Ezekiel 38. But not before that. So in terms of the threat, this is from freebeacon.com. And Iran claims to have a formula for a nuclear bomb. And no doubt they have the formula. Tehran threatens nuclear force against the U.S., Israel, and allies. It says a senior Iranian official said over the weekend that Islamic Republic has chemical and technical know-how to produce a nuclear weapon, and they're firing up all their hardware, all their centrifuges, etc. They're increasing production again and setting up their factories. Ahmed Khatami, a senior member of Iran's Assembly of Experts, which enjoys close ties to the Supreme Leader Khomeini, claimed in recent comments that having a nuclear missile is vital for Iran to confront the U.S. and its allies. So they're trying to, they're quickly trying to get a nuclear weapon, basically, so that they can use that as a threatening piece to Israel and the U.S. to threaten them to the point where they're not interested in going into Iran because of the threat of a nuclear weapon dropping on Israel, for example, or some U.S. interest, whether in the region or maybe even on the U.S. coast, for example, which Iran could ship a nuclear weapon over on a ship and potentially explode it near a big city on the East Coast or whatever of the United States, and that's certainly a possibility that is out there. It says having the missiles and nuclear authority is vital for Iran to confront U.S. and its allies. Khatami was quoted as saying in remarks in which he also referred to the United States as a thug. Remember, the United States is also the great Satan. Israel is the little Satan, as described by Iran. So they're moving towards it. They're still trying to get a nuclear weapon. They're still increasing missile technology and manufacturing. This is ongoing despite the sanctions. So time and time again, we know Iran's a real goal. We know their real purpose. They've said it overtly. It's not a secret. All the nations of the world know it, but you wouldn't hear this in mainstream media. You wouldn't hear them presenting the case that Iran consistently and frequently says that they want to destroy Israel. You won't hear that in mainstream media, and it's interesting to think about. Look at this one from Debka.com. Israeli estimate: new Iranian threat is now from Iraq, and Gaza escalates. And now what's happening? Well, Moscow is getting into the situation in Palestine. So they're getting into the Palestinian issue. So this article says, Iranian forces are moving back from Israel's border to northern and eastern Syria and arming Shiite proxies with surface missiles. So Iran is passing the buck, giving missiles to, again, all its proxies in hopes that they will get attacked and not Iran directly. I don't know why Iran does this, to be honest. I don't know why they don't just come out and fight themselves. Are they scared of Israel? They don't want to they don't want to start an open war with Israel. I don't see why they're so scared of it and why they're just arming proxies at this point, but it's kind of the slow movement towards, trying to take down Israel, but not wanting to get directly involved, I guess, at this point until they have their allies in place, i.e. Russia. It says this is reported in the Israeli military intelligence estimate for 2019, laid before the government 2 weeks ago and divided into two sections, pre- and post-election, interesting that they're dividing it pre- and post-election, because we know that the Israeli government, the IDF, is not going to do some things pre-election. We know that Iran has come out and stated that they're going to do some stuff pre-election. They're going to try and ramp up hostilities pre-election. But of course, the Netanyahu government doesn't have a mandate. But post-election, the Israeli government will have a strong mandate for whomever the leader is. I expect it will be Netanyahu. And it's after that time that Israel then can do some strikes and will have more power, more political power to do so. It says the document foresees heightened tensions in Gaza and northern fronts in the coming months. After April general election, the next government will have to take a stand on President Trump's deal of the century. So they're going to have to figure out what they're doing. Are they going along with the deal of the century? And whomever leads the country at that point in time is going to need to decide, are we going for this, or is this just another lame duck attempt by a president in the last couple years of his administration? So they're going to need to deal with that. In the run-up to the election, this report predicts the following events. The Gaza Strip will heat up. Already this week, thousands of Palestinians are gathering night after night on the Gaza border to attack Israeli troops. Number two, the northern front, including Golan. And remember, the Bible speaks about nations gathered all about its borders. And that's exactly what these 3 points are really referring to. The northern front, including the Golan, will see escalating violence from across the Syrian border. The Iranian Al-Quds Brigade and Hezbollah will be choosing their moment to fire missiles into Israel, taking advantage of who? Russian presence, somewhat inhibiting Israeli payback. So apparently, according to this intelligence report, Russia is already inhibiting Israeli movement, Israeli payback, Israeli strikes in Gaza, in Syria, in the Golan, interestingly. Number three, Palestinian terrorists will raise stakes in Judea and Samaria so as to cast a pall on Israel's elections, encouraged, by Moscow's first supportive intervention in the Palestinian arena. So now Russia is strong in the Palestinian cause. They are looking to have influence throughout the Middle East and thereby direct the Middle East politics and also the military movements and the military state of the area of the Middle East. Why do they care? Because of the spoil, because of the oil. And what happened? What is the reason for Gog-Magog invasion? It's for spoil. It's for the riches, the gold, the silver, if you will, the money, and the oil and the natural gas in the region. Debka intelligence sources report that Palestinians reckon that Netanyahu, when he arrives in the Russian capital February 21st, in 5 days from now, 6 days, will find in the Kremlin a newly friendly face for the Palestinian cause. So Russia is now shifting alliances. This is the milestone event. They're shifting out now away from Israel, and they will start shifting towards Palestinians, Iran, and this is part of the turning of Gog-Magog, the hook in the jaw that turns them around. They are starting to turn. They are starting to move towards the Palestinian and the Iranian cause. Therefore, Iran and Syria won't be the only items on the agenda of his talks with President Vladimir Putin, it says. So that's a very interesting development. It goes on here. The intelligence estimate points to changes in Iran's Syrian deployment. Its forces are described as pulling away from proximity with Israel's northern border. That's what we just read about where Iran is arming the proxies instead of just going overtly themselves to the border. They're regrouping in northern and eastern Syria. Are they lining up their military? Are they getting ready for kind of the end goal run, the end game, the game plan to march into Israel? Are they moving back so that they can size up and line up their troops, whomever will join them in the Allied attack for Ezekiel 38? Rather than being driven back under pressure of Israel's aerial and missile assaults, Tehran aims to take advantage of the coming withdrawal of U.S. troops from Syria to extend its strategic depth in Iraq. It says the Iranians are expected to leave Shiite militias behind for dealing with Israeli front and arm them with ground-to-ground short-range ballistic missiles. Israel's northern front is therefore not moving farther away. It's expanding into Iraq. So you have this expansion, this growing of hostile peoples and militias all around Israel, not just kind of a thin line on its border, but expanding out into, over the nations, over Syria, over Iraq. And so you'll have these large swaths that Israel would then need to deal with of hostile enemies up against its border, effectively. It says, expanding into Iraq, and in addition to the rockets piled up by Hezbollah, Hamas, and Islamic Jihad, Israel is now faced with ballistic missiles from Iraq and close by. So Iran has its fingers in the cookie jar all around Israel, in all the nations, and very prophetically, we really see what I think is the most interesting part is Moscow's turning towards Palestine, towards Iran, towards their cause in general. And this is part of the turning of Gog-Magog, the hook in the jaw that starts turning them away from supporting Israel's right to defense to the cause of Palestinians fighting against Israel, and to the cause of Iran fighting against Israel and wanting to push Israel into the sea. This is a very interesting prophetic situation here, and interesting intelligence from this particular report for Israel. Whoops, I minimized that. So interesting stuff going on here, guys, and so pay attention. We can see the story. We can see the plot thickening, if you will. We can see the storyline turning from a supportive Russian government to a government that is tending towards Iran, tending towards the enemies of Israel. And this is the description of the hooks in the jaw, turning, the words are turning Gog-Magog around in terms of the Ezekiel 38 and 39 battles, so we can see it coming upon us. I'll leave it there, guys. Pretty interesting situation, and we'll see you guys in the next video.